Nature may favor the strong, but no amount of claws or teeth can save a beast when the rival comes armed. It is famous about grizzlies that if you don't provoke them, they won't be bothered by you. But the reality is a little different. Sometimes grizzlies might sense threat just by the presence of the civilized in the forest wilderness. And these brown furry bears are not fans of intrusion, especially when a mother bear is with her cherished cubs. They are very protective of their little ones and would not even think twice before charging at the alleged intruder and getting rid of him. That is what happened with Landon Clement when his presence raised red flags in a grizzly's eyes. However, the poor bear was unaware of the gun holstered in his belt, and things didn't turn out as the grizzly had planned. What you are about to witness is not a fictional story with a larger-than-life twist, but a real-world event. It is the fight between one mighty predator and a strong-willed man. By the end, you will be stocking up on bear spray before your next trip to the woods. But does bear spray really work? On September 26, Landon Clement, a 31-year-old marathon runner and outdoorsman from Blue Ridge, Georgia, was elk hunting in the Upper Green area, a quarter-mile from Crow Creek. Joining Landon were his father, John Quintrell, a longtime friend of Don's, and Landon's cousin, Chris Harper. The Upper Green River area is known for its breathtaking beauty and stunning landscapes. It is situated in the western part of Wyoming and is home to a variety of wildlife, including grizzlies, moose, elk, and deer. Every year, many tourists visit this area for hunting, fishing, camping, and sightseeing. John used to live in Georgia but moved to the Upper Green area. He loved having his friends over for hunting, and this season he was hosting Don and his family. Landon and John had elk tags, so they were going hunting, whereas Chris and Don were not interested in that. They were just going to enjoy their time close to nature. Wyoming has the largest population of elk in the United States. The best season for archery hunting starts in September. It also coincides with the elk's breeding season, and hence there are more elks in sight. Archery hunting requires a lot of patience and precision, and Landon is known to be the master of both. His friends call him an avid hunter, and the incidents that followed that day totally contributed to proving his friends right. As the sun began to rise over the Upper Green River basin, the four guys hopped in a side-by-side vehicle. John had been living in the area for a long time, so he knew the best area for hunting. They drove to a remote area and parked the vehicle there. Going on the mountain in that vehicle was not easy, so they decided to hike. Then the wanderers, Don and Chris, split from the two hunters to find a good spot for chatting and basking in the sun. Landon and John walked a little farther and looked for spots to set up their bows. They were almost 300 yards apart. John was downhill while Landon chose a rock to be his anchor. He was just setting up his gear when he heard a rustling of leaves. His eyes glimmered with hope. The sound indicated the presence of some other creature in his vicinity. It was the season of elk, so he thought it definitely must be an elk. But he was proven wrong when he got a glimpse of a giant, bulky brown figure. He turned a little to his left to get another look, and the one figure was followed by two smaller figures. No antlers, lean legs replaced by short, heavy legs, and a big round face and a hump. The figures were not of elks, but giant bears. Landon slowly turned towards them to have a clear view. One grizzly bear was accompanied by her two cubs, and they were almost 100 yards away from Landon. A big mother roaming around with her two little ones seemed like a wholesome moment. They might cuddle in front of him, but the image of the warm moment disappeared when the fierce eyes of the mother came into view. He was flabbergasted by the presence of the giants, so he backed into the rock behind him and stood steadily. When in grizzly country, don't move or breathe. It was not the first time he was in a setting like this. He knew the basics of survival, so instead of running away and shouting to trigger the bear, he just steadied his legs on the ground and carefully observed the three strollers. If he just stood there motionless, the grizzly might not even notice him. Since he was not in their way, nor was he bothering them, he thought they would just walk away and mind their own business. And he would tell the story of watching grizzlies live in their next get-together. What he did not know was that nature had plans to make his story a lot more thrilling than just seeing the grizzlies wandering in the woods. Instead of walking in their direction, the grizzlies started moving toward the hunter. Clement said, "When those bears cut down that trail and veered toward me, I knew I was probably going to have an issue. Fortunately, he had a pistol with him, so he took it out in case the bear wanted to have a conversation with him. He did not want to harm the bear or her cubs, but if they attacked him, he would be left with no choice but to pull the trigger." Grizzlies hibernate for most of the year, which might portray them as lazy giants, but they are always hyper-aware of their surroundings. They might want to play the defensive game all the time, but when it comes to offense, they can be resilient fighters. Their senses are extraordinary. In fact, their sense of smell is estimated to be about 7 times stronger than that of a bloodhound and several thousand times better than a human's. And this one's actions were not just driven by the sense of smell, but also the motherly instinct to protect the cubs. She immediately noticed the presence of another being in her proximity. Landon seemed like a threat to her cubs, so before he could do anything, she wanted to end him. She locked her big brown eyes on the target and charged in his direction. The earth seemed to shift beneath his feet as the grizzly moved closer. Each heavy step sent a wave of fear through his body. The movements were swift, and before giving it a thought, Landon opened fire. He missed his aim, but the loud gunshot scared the cubs, and they ran to the woods. However, the mother had already decided on bloodshed, and she was not going anywhere. She covered the distance of 10 yards in less than a second. Before Landon could shoot another bullet, the grizzly was at him. She was straddling him with her weight. The giant was so close to him that he could hear her frantic breathing. The bear was angry, or maybe she was acting out of fear. Fear that the hunter might be there to take away her cubs, or that the gunshot was aimed at them to kill them. After studying her prey, she opened her big, strong jaw and her sharp teeth dug into Landon's left thigh. Grizzly bears have a bite force of almost 1,000 psi, and their bite is capable of crushing bones. However, this one was only residing to not use her ultimate strength. Maybe she wanted to toy with Landon for some more time before crushing him. After the initial shock of having a full-grown grizzly on top of him, Landon came back to his senses and looked at the pistol he was holding. He was expecting it to shoot the bear on its own, but that didn't happen. That technology has not made it to market yet. So he pulled the trigger, but nothing happened. He knew the gun was fully loaded, so there was no way he ran out of bullets after one shot. His brain narrowed down to only one reason for his gun to be malfunctioning. The gun was jammed. At the most crucial moment, fate had it against him. Under the tight grip of Grizzly, he had to fix the gun. In normal circumstances, it would have taken him a hefty amount of time to unjam it. But since his life was at stake, his hands worked pretty fast. He was able to clear it in a minute. Meanwhile, the grizzly was at his leg, moving her head while biting his thigh. It was as if she was trying to dig her way in. Apart from the weight of the grizzly and the pressure on his leg, he couldn't feel anything. It is difficult to keep your nerves calm in a situation like this, but Landon somehow managed. He pointed his gun closest to the head of the attacker. With the short distance, it was hard to miss a shot, so he pulled the trigger. The grizzly was busy with his leg, so she couldn't notice the gun, but the bullet that landed in her skull made her pause. She looked up at Landon, but he didn't stop. He kept on shooting at the bear, and it finally got off him and rolled away. Landon lay on the ground for a couple of minutes to catch his breath. He couldn't tell whether he had just woken up from a terrible nightmare or if the last 5 minutes had actually happened. The giant lying near him was a stark reminder of the incident. It started to settle in. He got up, and the giant that was on top of him moments ago was now lying there lifeless. That is when he realized the bear stank. He made a mental note to mention that when he narrated the story to his friends. As he got off the adrenaline surge, he looked at his leg. It was pretty badly injured, but was grateful that he was still alive, and the bear had not completely chopped any of his limbs off. He scanned the surroundings for any signs of the cubs. They were nowhere, but he still thought they might come back with a whole herd of grizzlies to charge at him. Getting out of the sight quickly was the best decision, so with his injured leg, he hobbled away screaming for help. After walking a little farther, he rested against a tree. He tightly gripped his gun in case any other wild animals were coming for him. But when he looked at it, it was jammed again. Landon realized it had jammed right after the killing shot. If it had jammed before that, the bear might have devoured him without leaving any trace of his existence. It was as if God gave him one shot to save himself, and he took it pretty well. John, who was 300 yards away, had heard the gunshots. He immediately ran towards Landon and found him lying near the tree. He was stunned at the sight of his leg. Landon explained the situation to him. His father and cousin had wandered almost a mile away from them, but as soon as they heard of the attack, they rushed to the location. Leaving him with his father, John sprinted down the mountain to get the vehicle, but it couldn't possibly make it to the top, so they had to walk downhill. Despite extreme pain, Landon anchored himself on a stick, and with the help of his father and cousin, he had to walk down 1.5 miles. It was torturous, but he made it. The boys helped him in the side-by-side vehicle and drove to the nearest clinic to get his wounds examined there. As he was being treated, the incident was reported to the game wardens. They came down to the clinic and questioned Landon. Grizzlies are listed under federal protection and are protected by the Endangered Species Act. It is illegal to kill or hunt them. But in incidents where one has to choose between their life and a grizzly, they are free to kill one. And Landon was sure he would not be met with repercussions since his act was purely to protect himself. In addition to his own testimony, the deep cuts on his leg were enough to prove his motive. Landon accompanied the guards for an on-site investigation as well later that Friday. He told the guards, "I wasn't planning to shoot. I did not want to shoot. As I had my pistol pointed at the bears, I was praying for them to keep moving. I waited until the very last moment when I didn't have a choice. She charged at me, and I knew at that moment it was me or her, and I chose myself." He was not very proud of his act, but he was grateful he was quick enough to make a responsible decision. When the guards asked him if he had bear spray and why didn't he use it, he told them that he was going archery hunting for elks, and being straddled by a bear was not on his list of itineraries for the day, so he did not pack one. But he was sure if he had one, it would not have been effective in making the giant go away. Surprisingly, this was not Landon's first encounter with a bear. They seemed to like him pretty well. 2 years before this incident, he had another encounter with a bear. It had knocked him off, but left immediately after that. In addition to this one, he had one more close call with a grizzly. A bear came near him, stared at him, and just left. 3 bear encounters in 3 years seem like an unusual occurrence. Maybe the bears have a thing for deer Landon. However, this one got a little intense, and in Wyoming, many hunters are charged by grizzlies every year, and it has become common. In conversation with a local news network, Don suggested that the grizzlies should be delisted, and their hunting should be legalized so they don't have to lose men to bear attacks every year. Landon agreed to him, but he said this encounter did not scare him off, and he would not want to eliminate the grizzlies. He has a deep love for nature, and he loves being in the woods, and the multiple grizzly encounters are just a highlight of his trips over the years. When asked if he would continue to visit Wyoming for his hunts, Landon showed no doubts. He had full plans of visiting often. He said, "Obviously, I will always have to continue be bear aware, but that's not going to stop me from chasing my passion." That was the story of Loudon Clements, who shot down a bear for his protection. But do you agree with Don's statement? This earth is home for all. Going deep into nature, encroaching on animals' territories, and expecting them to behave is not the most appropriate approach. Are the forest creatures really responsible for the deaths of hunters, or are they just protecting their area? What if the bears start walking into our homes and driving us out just for some thrill? Would we be okay with that? What are your insights on this topic? Let us know in the comments below. That was it for today's video. Don't forget to like and share. For more such videos, subscribe to our channel, and we will catch you in the next video, hopefully with another thrilling bear encounter.